friends, and welcome back to another Budget With Me video for the month of March. This series is a fairly new series that I've started on this channel to talk about all things budgeting when it comes to being a content creator. Now, I really love creating a little bit more transparency around income, and especially if you're a freelancer or someone like a content creator who's not earning consistent income. Going back a number of years ago when I was still working in a full-time job and I really wasn't doing freelancing full-time, I would have loved to have seen these videos, and I think it's because it just does give you that insight into how to budget potentially a little bit better, but also like what your actual income is. What is the potential? What are your expenses each month? Do you spend the same amount as everyone else? These are all these questions that you have as someone who is looking at getting into these fields, and I think that it's nice to have a little bit more transparency around that because people tend to see money as a bit of a taboo topic still, so it's nice to shed a little bit of light on this. Now, if you were here for last month's February budget video, you would have seen that February was going to be a really high spend month, and let me tell you, it definitely was. And wow, like I can't even explain how much of a hectic month it was with finances. What a way to start the budgeting series, because it can really show you what we're left with at the end of the month, which, let's be real, it wasn't much, and how things can fluctuate with not having consistent income. So for example, I had a few things last month kind of, I guess you would say, go wrong, where one of my contracts did not go through and it will not be continuing. So that was obviously frustrating to have known that something was supposed to be locked in for this year and now it is not. So that was a hit to my income this month, and that affected basically any savings that we did have left over at the end of the month and what we were going to do with that. So that was definitely disappointing, and seeing how much actually went out of our bank account last month was just like, it makes me feel sick. Like, I'm going to be completely real. It was just a lot of money, and especially on a month where we felt like it was a good earning month, it kind of sucked. So to see all of that money basically just go right out again, I'm sure everyone deals with this at the moment in a cost of living crisis. It is very hard to avoid. This is where I think it can be so hard when you're watching other people's budgeting videos too, because income plays such a huge part as to how you can actually work with your money and where you can put it aside and what you can invest in. And basically, I think I've come to the conclusion that if you are not earning enough money for your expenses, your lifestyle, there's no way you can kind of outsave that, if that makes sense. So I think this is why money should be less of a taboo subject. I think there's a lot of people out there wondering why they're not able to save the money that other people can, and it's a very frustrating situation to be in. But the thing is, most people don't really know what other people are earning, and for a lot of people that are able to put stacks of savings away or investments or all of that sort of thing, for a lot of those people, they're probably earning more. So it's good to see the transparency around this and actually see the expenses involved with being a content creator too, I think. But yeah, February was just like not our month, I think. And where we really wanted to get saving a little bit last month, it just wasn't possible. And I feel like for the last year and a bit, since the cost of living crisis has really hit hard, it has been difficult to save. I'm not going to lie. Like, we have been definitely living, I think, within our means, and we really don't have a lot of subscriptions and things like that my partner and I pay for. We don't really have like Disney Plus and all of those different types of subscriptions. We only have like a Spotify subscription between us and like a couple of other things that are not necessities but are wants maybe. We do have health insurance each, and I think that that's the priority for us at the moment, is to just have things covered. Even having things like pet insurance was really important to us because we didn't want to have to be in a situation where we felt like we weren't able to save enough money on the side to cover anything that went wrong with our dogs. And we have heard horror stories of dogs, being sent in for $30,000 operations. And realistically, are we ever going to have enough money in a single fund, $30,000 worth, just for our pets? Like, obviously we have an emergency fund, we have shares, we do have our investments, but realistically to start a whole other fund of like $30,000 or more worth of funds just in case our pets get sick, like, I don't think we could probably manage that at this point in time. So pet insurance was something that we felt we needed to have. And this is where our priorities kind of lay at the moment. Our priorities also lay with travel because we love to do that. So we do tend to cut back on a lot of other things throughout the month. We don't really go shopping very often, especially when it comes to clothes and even beauty and that sort of thing these days. I'm pretty strict with what I buy, but travel is one thing that we still love to do. So we obviously try and throw money at that whenever we can, even though it's been very difficult in the last year. But there's been some little tactics that we've been able to do and kind of get around I guess, the fact that travel is costly. And there are ways that you can make it a lot cheaper for yourself. But we're going to get into this month's budget with me. But first, I'm actually going to talk about February a little bit more, get into the spreadsheet, show you guys what it actually looks like and what the actual figures are for income, expenses, and where we're basically sitting at the end of the month. And before I do begin, because I know I've had questions about this before, but I am using the budgeting spreadsheets from CoPlenty. So if you're interested in checking out CoPlenty, there is a link in the description box below. It's an affiliate link, and there's also a code for a discount if you're interested in those templates. I find them really easy to use. So good. Like, I'm so glad that I have these templates now to keep track of all of my finances, because wow, I don't even know how we did this before. I don't know how we actually did it, not knowing the exact figures of everything that was coming in and going out of our bank account each month. So really love those templates, and go check them out below if you're interested. But for now, let's get into February spreadsheet and let's see what actually happened. Okay, so we're now in the February spreadsheet, and you can see exactly what our left to spend total is, which is just over $500. Now, if you remember, we had around about $1,000 supposedly that we were going to have left over at the beginning of February when I did my budget with me video. And that unfortunately changed because, as I mentioned, I did not get one of the sponsorships that I was supposed to get. We were actually meant to lock that in, I believe, at like the end of last year, and then it sort of dragged out. And unfortunately, it's just not going ahead now. So that's really a big shame, but unfortunately as well, our budget did take a bit of a hit from that. So left to spend for the month was $502.07. Our total income was $10,848.57, and our total expenses were $10,346.50. So we're basically breaking even with February. When you see the amount of expenses, that is crazy. Like, that makes me feel ill that we as a society are quite often spending these amounts just to literally get through life. And when you actually break down a lot of the expenses that I've had this month, the majority of them were necessities. I will put a disclaimer in here and mention that one of the things that obviously isn't a necessity was the travel that we are actually saving for, and that is a trip that we have booked. So it is upcoming, and yes, it's not a necessity, but this is something that we have been saving for over a few months. So if you do take that out, that would have been a little bit of savings extra that we would have had, and we would have had some leftover cash. But even still, even when you're taking that amount out, it still feels like a lot of money to be spending each month. So let's get into it and actually have a look what happened in Feb. So looking at our total income, it was actually a little bit more than what I'd budgeted. So that was because I had budgeted Dan's pay a little bit conservatively, as I usually do, because his job is based on an hourly rate. So we never actually really know exact figures of what he's actually going to make per month. And so I just kind of under budget a little bit each month. So it was about $360 more than what I actually thought. My YouTube was pretty much bang on. My sponsorships, this is where unfortunately I lost that sponsorship, and that was like $1,000 that I just did not receive. So very sad. I really thought that one was going to be locked in, but unfortunately not. And then my UGC content received around $2,710, which was pretty much exactly what I had budgeted. Now, the good thing is about this income is that I did have some other things that I didn't project at the beginning of the month. So if you remember, I wouldn't have had presets or affiliate marketing or even stills here. So these are actually some extra amounts that I did receive throughout the month. Had a really good month on my website with presets, which was good. Affiliate marketing was just my regular payment. I think it was for Amazon affiliate marketing, potentially. Could have been a couple of different affiliate marketing payments that I got. But either way, that was an extra $100 or so. And then Stills, which is an image licensing website that I signed up for sometime early last year, I think. And it is basically, as I mentioned, image licensing. So as a photographer, I do have a number of images through there that I have licensed from time to time. And certain months, I will get a notification to say that someone has licensed my images, and I get a payment from that. So that was really good timing because the other contract did not go through. So it kind of made up for that fact this month. And roughly total income was about $10,850 or so, and around $288 more than I had projected. So that was okay. What was not okay was the following expenses. So pretty much our regular expenses were basically what they were budgeted as, but the car rego, I don't know what I was thinking by putting that number down of 160, but it was wrong, and it was actually 226, and this is why it's really important to be specific when you've got your numbers in your budget. So I got that wrong. It was about $66 more than what I thought, and there's a couple here where electricity bills and, you know, certain things can vary. And yes, that was about $70 over the budget, which not great, but in the grand scheme of things, it really wasn't a lot. And in terms of subscriptions and memberships, these don't tend to go over at all, usually month to month. It might just be, you know, I think there was an increase with my Premiere Pro subscription and I didn't know exactly how much it was going to be, so I guessed last month. Same as Google Workspace. I think that can vary month to month because of the exchange rate actually on that one, but not entirely sure. About 83 cents over. So otherwise that was pretty much bang on what I had budgeted. And now for the general expenses. So this is where things kind of start to go downhill a little bit more. So our groceries and fuel for the month, both under budget by about like $50 or so, $60. So about or $37 for the groceries under budget for the month and $63 under budget for fuel. So that was really good. I always like to try and keep those two under those budgets if I can. Dining out. Now, if you remember in my last video for budget with me in February, I wanted to put down a $400 budget initially for dining out because we always tend to go over dining out. It is our weak point. It is our Achilles heel and we always go over. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make it $400 this month. I didn't. I made it $300 and I genuinely thought we could get it under $300. We basically doubled that. So that was our first mistake for the month is we went over on dining out. Dining out does include basically everything. So whether it's coffees we're getting, whether it is takeaway, whether it's actually going out to a restaurant, doesn't matter. All of that stuff's included. So, I mean, you know, $600 for the month is not great. I think we can definitely improve on that when we need to save a little bit harder, especially in February where it was such a hectic month financially. So it wasn't great. $318 over budget there. I mean, $300 per month for dining out is actually not a lot, even for a couple. That's $150 each. You are likely to maybe get like 2 meals in Australia out, like full restaurant meals. You're lucky to maybe get 4 meals out between you both in total for that $300 here in Australia. So it sort of equals maybe like twice a week eating out with dining out, but like still, I do feel like it was probably a little bit excessive this month, let's be real, especially when everything else was going on. So that's one thing I'm a little bit disappointed we couldn't get further down this month, and I'm trying to be a little bit more cautious for March with that. So next thing was gifts, and I spent $30. That was basically on target. Pets went over. Unfortunately, I budgeted $300. Those vet bills ended up being a little bit more than what I had expected. The doggos actually had their vaccinations in the last week of Feb, and unfortunately for Suki, she required some extra medication that was more of like a sedative because she gets quite anxious going to the vet, and we didn't want there to be any adverse situations in the vet's office. She was just so terrified. Like you can just tell by her body language, she was just not wanting to be there. She was very anxious and we just didn't want to make it worse for her. So we decided to reschedule the appointment, come in another day and give her just some medication to kind of calm her down beforehand, which worked well, but unfortunately that was extra money. I also think I didn't budget for their flea tick and worming that we would usually get. So that was also in that. So yeah, it definitely blew out quite a bit by about $240 last month. Those doggos definitely cost a bit in February. Unfortunately, even with pet insurance, this doesn't really cover this side of things. But you know, at least they're covered for those bigger issues, and I'm just glad that they've had the vaccines now. That's kind of out of the way. Next thing was health and medical. Still went over on that. I budgeted $700 for scans and things like that last month, and it was $785. They weren't all scans. There was maybe 1 or 2 appointments in there, but oh my God, like considering we have technically a free health system over here in Australia, not everything is free, as you can see, and $785 is probably the most we've spent medically in a month, like that I can recall in recent years, like maybe ever. So that was quite a lot, and $85 over budget. Our trip was a little bit over budget because we actually had to put a deposit down on an Airbnb. So this was for our flights and a little bit of accommodation, but we actually went over that just because we wanted to get one of those Airbnbs out of the way and reserved. We didn't want to leave it until the last minute to look for accommodation because, as you know, that can increase the price of hotels, accommodation, that sort of thing. So we wanted to lock that one in. So we did go a little bit over with that, but that was kind of purposeful. Events was about $42, $43. That was on the mark. Pest control, we did manage to get the birds out of our roof and get that kind of proofed. So that was $350, but we did actually have to buy a little bit of extra materials just to see what we could do to fix some of the ducting that the birds had chewed through. So we're still actually in the process of working that out, but we won't actually be using all of that $68 or whatever we spent on it. So we actually will have to take some of that materials back and hopefully get a refund for it. So that's not 100% accurate, but even still, it was money that I did not budget. And then you can see over here with debt, our mortgage was $2,996, although I am very happy to report that hopefully for this month, being March, we did have an interest rate drop in Australia last month, so hopefully our mortgage will be a little bit cheaper next month. We'll see. Credit card, we put about $100 on, and car loan was about the same as what it usually is. Now, you can see here we did budget about $200 for the emergency account, $300 for travel, and $571.91 for savings. That was the remainder, I'm assuming, of the money we were supposed to have left over. However, we only have about $500 left over, so that is probably going to go all towards our trips account, to be honest. But for now, we're probably just going to chuck it into savings and just leave it there for now, because I don't want to really break that up any further into smaller amounts. We didn't have a lot left over at the end of the month, so we'll just keep that in the account for now, and probably it will go towards our trip at some point. Now let's go down here and actually look at where most of the money goes. Now, our mortgage is about 30% of the income there, which I think is supposed to be pretty standard for your expenses here in Australia. However, the other expenses that come along with having a mortgage, and particularly a mortgage in a strataed property, tend to be a lot more than that per month. So you can see here our trip was obviously number 2 in terms of what we spent. However, that is not going to be the same for next month and the following months. We won't have as much to put away for that likely. Health and medical was definitely up there. Dining out, again, that was a choice. That was definitely a choice. Pets, pest control, groceries, car loan, health insurance, car rego, strata, green slip, the list goes on. So yeah, when you're really looking at how much we spent, it's pretty insane how much actually came out last month, and how much of it, like I said, was just not even wants. It was just like necessities. You can also see here with this chart, like, when did I spend my money? So the majority of it's coming out on Feb 28th, and that is when our mortgage comes out. And you can see a running tally there. So basically, again, looking at our wants, the things that we spent money on that was a bit more of a choice last month was obviously our trip, and it was dining out. That was basically it. We don't really have any subscriptions at the moment that are for ourselves, apart from like Spotify. That's pretty much it. So it's kind of sad. I mean, I guess I don't feel as bad spending as much on dining out when I know that that is what we do in our day-to-day or week-to-week lives to kind of give us that little bit of joy and something to do. And that is a hard thing. I feel like there's not too many things to do a lot of the time that involve zero money, and unfortunately, whether you're driving somewhere and you have to use petrol, whether you are going to get a coffee, whether you are, doing any of that, it feels like there's always some sort of money involved. So we will have to work a little bit harder sometimes at maybe not spending every time we sort of go out, and not always getting a coffee and doing things like that. I'm really wanting to work in a few no spend weeks, so we'll see how we go with that this year. But I feel like overall, I think we did well last month, to be honest, in February, even though we did spend, a little bit over our budget. I feel like it was such a hectic month. We usually do not have our expenses that high. So it was a lot. It was a lot in one month to deal with, and I'm just glad that it's over, to be honest. It was exhausting. So now I'm going to start a fresh slate for March. So we're just going to duplicate this tab. And it's basically time to wipe the spreadsheet. So let's rename this one to March. We're going to start the month from the 1st of March. And then we are just going to backspace all of the actuals. Okay, so let's start putting in our totals for March. So this month is going to be a little bit trickier because I do have a few things in the works, but I'm going to be a bit more conservative again, especially after what happened last month. And I'm not going to include those things that potentially are in the works for me because I don't know for sure whether those potential jobs are going to go through. So we are going to keep my YouTube pay the same. I will also keep Dan's pay the same, but he has recently received a pay rise. So that is really wonderful. And I don't think that actually comes into effect maybe until next month anyway. So I'm just going to keep this at 4.2. We'll just keep that the same. And if it's a little bit more, a little bit less, we'll deal with that when the time comes. Sponsorships this month will be a little bit different. So roughly I'm going to set this as 2,320. in sponsorships. It'll probably be a little bit less this month. At the moment, I don't have any UGC expected for this month, although again, there's a few things in the works at the moment. So I just don't want to kind of like over budget for that at all. And I'm going to leave all of these the same at this point. I'm actually going to delete those altogether because I don't know how much I will be expecting for any of that, if anything at all. So we're just going to delete those for now, make this nice and easy and simplified. And we're going to change some of these figures because not everything is going to really be due at the same time this month, thank God. So first we're going to start with car rego. So it's about $226 that I paid last time. So I'm actually just going to divide this by 6 because I pay it 6 monthly. So that'll be about like say $38. So we can change that amount to 38. Our green slip, same sort of thing. So 182 divided by 6. And this just means we can put away say $31 a month for the green slip and $38 for the car rego. So that's a little bit less. All of these expenses, the subscriptions and memberships here are basically the same. So that's all good. Now let's move over to expenses. So in terms of what we're going to do here, my health and medical will probably not be as expensive this month. So it may only be say around maybe $200. Let's go 200. Our trip will be a little bit different again. I'm just actually going to put that at 0 for now because I don't know. It'll be really dependent on how much, if we have much of a surplus at the end of the month, what I will put towards that. Events won't be anything this month. No pest control, thank God. Pets I'm actually going to put to 200 because we still need food for them this month. And I don't think there's anything specifically else we need for them, but we'll just see. I'm just going to set the budgets of the savings accounts to 0 for now. Now, I believe, like I said, our mortgage is going to be a little bit less this month. So if we go and put in 2925, I think that'll be roughly maybe what we're up for now instead of 2996, which is great. That'll be kind of like an approximate, so that will also save us a little bit of money in the month. And I am considering upping the dining out budget a little bit this month. Should I up it to 400 after what happened last month? I think I am. I think I am going to do that. And then the remainder, we're not going to have a lot left over for this month. But at the same time, our expenses were so much lower this month. Thank God. So I think, I will. I'm going to put it as $400 this month. And then we have, say, roughly about $200 left over that we can put into our trip or our savings account. At the moment, we're just using mainly just our general savings account that we will then split up after a couple of months and move some into emergency, move some into trips, whatever it ends up being. So I think that this is a pretty decent budget for this month. We are not going to have a lot left over, like I mentioned, but so again, it'll probably be quite a strict month, but at the same time, as I mentioned, there will be some things that will probably come through additionally at the end of the month at this stage. So waiting to sort of see where that stuff goes. But otherwise, I think this is just looking a little bit calming than February. Like February was just a lot. So I'm pretty happy with this budget at the moment. I'm just going to make this a $0 budget and say $198.91 into just our general savings. And let's do that. And then we have our $0 budget. So hopefully everything is accounted for there. But as I mentioned, March is looking a little bit more calm than February. I'm definitely happy about that. Overall, I think it's just going to be a little bit more chill than having everything due that was due last month. So hopefully it ends up being a good month, and thank God February's over. Well, thank you so much for watching this video today, and if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, make sure you do because I'll be posting a lot more videos like this one. Let me know down in the comment section below if you want to see more budgeting videos like this one because I would love to include them more in this channel and talk about them more, and if you want to see more videos where I deep dive into certain parts of the finances, let me know because I am really interested in doing more of these videos. So I would love to hear all of your thoughts down in the comment section. Just a quick reminder as well, if you want to go and check out Code Plenty, there is an affiliate link in the description box below and there is a discount code, so make sure to use that if you're interested in purchasing. Also make sure to hit the notification bell to see all the videos that I have coming up in future, and go follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Kaylee June Creative. But thank you so much as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.